You know what the most powerful thing a woman can do? It ain't arguing. It ain't crying at 2 a.m. sending paragraphs. It ain't begging somebody to see your worth. The most powerful thing a woman can do is leave quietly and let her absence do all the talking. Because here's what most women don't understand. Your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. And the moment you stop making yourself available to someone who doesn't appreciate you, something shifts. The room feels different. He feels different. And suddenly, the man who was taking you for granted starts realizing what he let walk out the door. This right here is not about revenge. This is not about playing games. This is about a woman finally choosing herself. With her head held high, her dignity intact, and her crown still on. Your silence is the most powerful language you will ever speak. And most women don't even know they have it. For years you've been taught to communicate. Express yourself. Use your words. Don't shut down, don't go cold, don't leave things unsaid. And yes, communication matters in the right relationship with the right person at the right time. But nobody ever sat you down and told you that there comes a moment in certain situations where your words are doing more damage to you than good. Nobody told you that every time you over-explain yourself to a man who isn't listening, you are handing him proof that he can treat you poorly and still keep you talking, still keep you engaged, still keep you there. That's the trap, and so many beautiful, intelligent, emotionally generous women fall right into it. Think about how many times you've had the same conversation, different day, different version of the same argument, same outcome. You pour your heart out. You explain exactly how you feel, exactly what hurt you, exactly what you need. He listens, or at least he looks like he's listening. Maybe he says sorry. Maybe he says he'll do better. And for a little while, you feel hopeful. You feel like you were finally heard. But then 2 weeks later, you're right back in that same kitchen, that same living room, that same late night text thread, having the exact same conversation all over again. And each time you have it, a little piece of you breaks off and disappears. That's not communication anymore. That's a woman auditioning for a role she already deserves. Here's what nobody tells you. When a man is not ready to receive what you're giving, your words don't land the way you intend them to. They don't create the change you're hoping for. Instead, what happens is he learns your patterns. He learns that no matter how upset you are, you'll explain yourself. No matter how hurt you feel, you'll reach back out. No matter how close you get to the edge, you won't actually jump. And so he never takes the threat of losing you seriously, because your actions have shown him he doesn't have to. Your words told him you were unhappy, but your consistency told him you weren't going anywhere. That's why silence changes everything. The moment you stop explaining, stop defending, stop sending the paragraphs, stop making yourself emotionally available to someone who has repeatedly shown you they don't value it, something fundamental shifts. Because now he can't read you. Now he doesn't know where he stands. Now the comfortable little dynamic he'd gotten used to has been disrupted. And disruption forces awareness in a way that conversation never could. There's a reason it unsettles people when someone they've taken for granted goes quiet. It's not just about missing the attention. It goes deeper than that. Your silence forces him to fill in the blanks himself. And when a man has to sit alone with his thoughts, with no explanation from you, no reassurance, no emotional safety net, he starts to feel the weight of his own behavior. He can't project. He can't deflect. He just has to sit there with the reality of what he's been doing and what it might have cost him. That's accountability without a single word from you. And understand this, your silence is not passive. People confuse silence with giving up, going numb, or having nothing to say. But the kind of silence we're talking about is intentional. It is a woman who has decided that her energy is sacred, that her emotions are not a public resource, that she is no longer going to bleed openly for someone who watches her without offering a bandage. That is not weakness. That is a woman who has finally drawn a line in the soil and decided she will not cross it again. It takes enormous strength to go quiet when every part of you wants to reach out. When your heart is heavy and your phone is in your hand and you've typed the message out 3 times already. Deleting it takes more courage than sending it. Choosing silence in that moment is one of the most difficult and most dignified things you will ever do for yourself. Because what you're really doing is protecting your own peace. You are refusing to keep investing your emotional currency into an account that never pays you back. And that decision, quiet as it looks from the outside, is revolutionary. Now here's what happens next, and this is the part that matters. When you go silent, one of two things occurs. Either he wakes up, he feels the absence, he reflects, he realizes what he stands to lose, and he shows up differently. Not with words, but with actions. Real, consistent, changed behavior. That's when you know the silence worked the way it was supposed to. And you need to be ready for this. He doesn't come back at all. He lets you go. And as painful as that is, that answer is just as valuable because it tells you everything you needed to know about what you actually meant to him. It closes a door that needed to be closed so you could stop standing in a hallway waiting on something that was never coming. Either way, you win, because either you get a man who finally understands your value or you get the clarity to move forward without him. But none of that is possible as long as you keep talking, as long as you keep explaining yourself into exhaustion, as long as you keep making it easy for him to stay comfortable while you carry all the emotional weight. The most powerful statement you will ever make in your life won't come from your mouth. It'll come from your decision to finally, deliberately, and unapologetically go quiet and let your absence say every single thing your words never could stop talking, Queen. Let him figure it out. There is a truth that stings when you first hear it, but heals you once you finally accept it. And that truth is this: he was never going to miss you while you were still there. Not because you weren't enough, not because you weren't loving him right, not because there was something fundamentally wrong with you, but because of something so deeply human that it applies to every single one of us. We do not fully appreciate what we believe will always be there. Think about the air you breathe. You never wake up in the morning grateful for oxygen. You never pause mid-conversation and think, thank God I can inhale right now. It's always there. It requires nothing from you. And so your brain files it under permanent and stops paying attention to it. Now imagine for 1 second that it wasn't. Imagine the panic, the desperation, the sudden overwhelming awareness of something you spent your entire life taking for granted. That's when appreciation is born, not in the presence of something, but in the terrifying possibility of its absence. You were his oxygen, and he forgot to be grateful. This is not an excuse for his behavior. It's an explanation of the dynamic you unknowingly walked yourself into. Every morning you were there, every night you checked in. Every time he was distant, you pulled closer. Every time he was cold, you brought warmth. Every time there was a gap, you rushed to fill it. You were consistent, devoted, and present in a way that most people can only dream of receiving from another person. And what did all of that beautiful, genuine love get you? Comfort. His comfort. A man so settled into the certainty of your presence that he stopped doing the things that earned it in the first place. See, in the beginning he showed up. In the beginning he called when he said he would, made the effort, planned things, paid attention. And you fell for that version of him, which makes complete sense because that version was real. But what happened over time is that he got comfortable. And a comfortable man in a relationship where he feels no risk of loss will always eventually start to coast. Coasting looks like this. He stops initiating as much. He starts assuming you'll always be there when he's ready. He puts you on the back burner while he focuses on other things, knowing in the back of his mind that you'll still be warm when he comes back around. He doesn't do this out of pure malice. He does it because nothing in your actions has ever suggested that there's a cost to doing it. You never made him feel the weight of losing you. So losing you never felt like a real possibility. And here's where so many women make the mistake that keeps them stuck. They try to solve the problem of being taken for granted by doing more, being more understanding, being more patient, being more loving, giving more time, more grace, more chances, as if the issue is that you haven't shown him enough of your value yet, as if one more act of devotion will finally flip the switch. But that is not how this works. You cannot love someone into appreciating you. You cannot give your way out of being taken for granted, because the more you give to someone who isn't reciprocating, the more normal your giving becomes to them. It stops feeling like a gift. It starts feeling like an expectation. And expectations don't inspire gratitude. They inspire entitlement. The only thing that breaks the cycle is the one thing that feels the most terrifying: withdrawal. Not as manipulation, not as a game, but as a genuine, self-respecting decision to stop pouring yourself into something that isn't filling you back up. When you pull back your energy, your time, your emotional availability, you create a vacuum. And nature abhors a vacuum. That empty space where you used to be doesn't just disappear. It expands. It grows louder. It starts making noise in the quiet moments, in the middle of the night, in the spaces between his distractions. He reaches for the comfort of your presence and finds nothing. He expects your name on his screen, and the screen stays dark. He waits for you to come back around, and you don't. That's when it starts. The first thing he feels is confusion, because this doesn't match the pattern he'd gotten used to. Then the confusion turns into curiosity. Why is she quiet? Then the curiosity turns into something that sits much heavier in the chest, something that feels uncomfortable and unfamiliar. That feeling has a name. It's called missing someone. And he cannot manufacture it, cannot fake it, cannot feel it in full until you are actually gone. You cannot make a man miss you while you are standing right in front of him, making yourself easy to access. Absence is the only teacher for this particular lesson. And it is the one lesson that no amount of conversation, no amount of ultimatums, no amount of crying or explaining or pleading can replicate. When he feels your absence, truly feels it, something in him recalibrates. Suddenly he's thinking about a specific way you laughed, the little things you used to do that he brushed off without a thank you. The way the space around him feels different now, heavier, quieter, less warm. And it hits him, maybe for the first time with real clarity, that what he had was not ordinary, that you were not replaceable, that he made a mistake every single day he spent coasting instead of showing up. Now, and this part is critical, that realization does not automatically mean he deserves another chance. Sometimes it comes too late. Sometimes the lesson arrives after the window has closed. But that is not your burden to carry. Your only job is to stop being so available to someone who hasn't earned that availability. Your only job is to understand deep in your bones that you are not a guaranteed fixture in anyone's life. You are a privilege, a rare and specific kind of presence that not everyone is equipped to handle with the care it deserves. Stop making yourself permanent to someone who treats you like furniture. Scarcity creates value in every area of life, and you, in all your depth and all your love and all your loyalty, are not something that should ever be taken for granted. Make him feel what it means to almost lose something irreplaceable, and then let him sit with that feeling long enough to decide what he's truly willing to do about it. Somewhere along the way, somebody lied to you. They told you that a strong woman holds on, that love means enduring, that if you just stay patient enough, faithful enough, present enough, things will eventually turn around. And you believed it because you wanted to. Because leaving felt like failure, and staying felt like loyalty, and nobody ever taught you that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is simply let go. This is the lie that has kept generations of women in situations they outgrew long ago. The idea that walking away means you couldn't handle it, that you gave up too soon, that if you had just tried a little harder, been a little more patient, loved a little deeper, maybe it would have worked. And so you stayed through the disappointment and the confusion and the nights where you cried so quietly because you didn't even want to explain to yourself why you were crying anymore. You stayed because leaving felt like weakness, because somewhere in your conditioning, endurance got confused with strength. But let's talk about what real strength actually looks like. Real strength is not white-knuckling your way through a situation that is slowly draining the life out of you. Real strength is not swallowing your pain so consistently that you forget what it felt like to be genuinely happy. Real strength is not shrinking yourself, quieting your needs, abandoning your standards, and calling it love. That is not strength. That is survival. And there is a profound difference between a woman who is thriving and a woman who has simply gotten very good at surviving. The woman who walks away, she is the strong one, not the woman who stays past the point of her own dignity. The woman who looks at a situation that is not serving her, that is not growing her, that is not honoring the depth of who she is, and makes the decision to remove herself from it, even when every emotion in her body is pulling her back. That takes a different kind of courage, a quieter kind, the kind that doesn't get applause, doesn't get recognition, and in the beginning doesn't even feel like the right decision. Because here is the reality of walking away that nobody prepares you for. It hurts. It hurts in a way that feels indistinguishable from making a mistake. In those first days and weeks, your heart doesn't care about your logic. Your heart just knows it misses something familiar. It misses the routine, the inside jokes, the comfort of a specific person's voice, even when that person wasn't treating you right. And your mind will use that pain as evidence that you made the wrong choice. It will tell you to go back. It will romanticize every good moment and conveniently blur every bad one. It will build a case for returning that sounds almost reasonable. Do not let the temporary pain of leaving convince you to return to the permanent pain of staying. That is the test of true strength. Not whether you feel the pain, you will feel it. And feeling it means you are human and you love genuinely. The strength is in what you do while you feel it. Whether you let it push you backward or whether you breathe through it, cry through it, fall apart and put yourself back together through it and keep moving forward anyway. And this is where the real transformation begins. Because the moment a woman chooses herself, truly, completely, without apology, something inside her starts to shift. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't arrive with a dramatic revelation. It comes quietly, gradually, in small moments. The morning you wake up and the first thought isn't about him. The afternoon you laugh at something and the laughter is real. The evening you sit alone and realize the silence doesn't feel lonely anymore. It feels like peace. That is healing. That is a woman who made the brave choice and is now receiving the quiet reward of it. You cannot access that version of yourself while you are still holding on to what was diminishing you. Growth requires space. It requires the room that only becomes available when you stop filling every corner of your life with someone who wasn't adding to it. When you walk away, you create that space. And what moves into that space over time, with patience, with self-investment, is a version of you that you haven't met yet. A woman who knows what she will and will not accept. A woman who has tested her own strength and discovered it is far greater than she realized. A woman who no longer needs to audition for love because she has learned to be the love she was always looking for. That woman doesn't settle, not because she is cold or closed off, but because she has been through the fire of choosing herself and she is not willing to go back to accepting less than she deserves. She has a new standard now, not born from bitterness, but from experience, from knowing the difference between a relationship that builds her and one that slowly dismantles her. And this matters more than people realize. Walking away with grace, without hatred, without the desire to destroy what you're leaving behind, is the highest form of emotional maturity a woman can display. It says, I loved you, it didn't work, I wish you no harm. But I love myself more than I love the idea of us. That is not a woman running away from something. That is a woman walking deliberately towards something better, even when she can't yet see exactly what it is. So if you are standing at that crossroads right now, feeling the pull of what's familiar and the fear of what's unknown, understand this clearly. The fear you feel about leaving is not a sign that you should stay. It is a sign that you have been there so long that your comfort zone has reshaped itself around a situation that was never truly comfortable. Fear of the unfamiliar is not the same as evidence that the familiar is good for you. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else matters more than the fear. And what matters more right now in this moment is you, your peace, your growth, your future, your wholeness. Walk away, not with anger burning in your chest, not with the need to prove anything to anyone. Walk away with your spine straight and your eyes forward and the quiet, unshakable knowing of a woman who finally, after everything, chose herself first. That is not weakness. That has never been weakness. That is the bravest thing you will ever do. You did everything right. That is the part that makes it so hard to understand. You communicated. You were patient. You were honest about your feelings in a way that took real vulnerability, real courage, real emotional openness. You sat across from him and told him exactly what you needed. You wrote it out. You explained it calmly. You explained it through tears. You gave him time to process, time to change, time to grow into the partner you believed he was capable of being, and still, nothing shifted in the way it needed to. And so you blamed yourself. You went back through every conversation, wondering if you said it wrong, wondering if you were too emotional or not emotional enough, too available or not available enough. You questioned your tone, your timing, your approach. You read things, listen to things, tried new ways of expressing the same fundamental need to be loved properly, to be shown up for consistently, to matter to someone in a way that was visible and real. And no matter how you packaged the message, the delivery fell flat. Not because your words were wrong, but because the person receiving them wasn't ready to do anything meaningful with them. Here is what that experience was trying to teach you, and it is one of the most important lessons a woman can ever absorb. You cannot verbally instruct someone into truly valuing you. Words, no matter how perfectly constructed, cannot create appreciation in someone who hasn't yet felt the weight of your absence. Telling a man what he has is completely different from him feeling what it means to lose it. One is information. The other is experience. And experience is the only teacher that produces permanent change. Think about it this way. You can describe the color red to someone who has never seen it. You can use every word available to you. Warm, vivid, intense, passionate. But until that person sees red with their own eyes, your description will always fall short of the reality. That is what you were doing every time you tried to make him understand your value through conversation alone. You were describing a color he hadn't seen yet, and the only way he was ever going to see it was if you removed yourself from the picture entirely and let the absence of your color show him how gray everything becomes without you. Your absence is not a punishment. Understand that clearly, because too many women hesitate to withdraw themselves because they don't want to be perceived as playing games or being manipulative. But there's nothing manipulative about a woman who stops making herself available to someone who hasn't been treating her availability as the gift that it is. That is not strategy. That is self-respect in motion. That is a woman whose actions have finally caught up with what her words have been saying all along. Because the cruelest thing you can do to yourself is to keep verbally expressing that you deserve better while your behavior continues to demonstrate that you will accept less. When your actions and your words finally align, when you say you deserve more and then actually leave to go find it, that is when everything changes. Not just for him, but for you. And honestly, the change in you matters infinitely more than whatever he does in response. Because here's what walking away and building a life without him actually does to a woman. It strips away every false identity she had built around his presence. Every morning she wakes up and chooses herself again. She reclaims a piece of who she was before she started shrinking to fit into his world. She starts rediscovering her own interests, her own rhythm, her own capacity for joy that has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not he texts back. She starts investing the emotional energy she was spending on him into herself, her goals, her healing, her growth, her friendships, her purpose. And something remarkable happens as a result of that investment. She starts to glow, not the performative kind of glow that is designed to make him jealous, though the effect sometimes follows. The real kind, the kind that comes from a woman who has stopped abandoning herself in the name of love and started building something internally that no one can take from her. A calmness settles into her eyes. A new kind of confidence enters the room with her. She carries herself differently. Not harder, not colder, but more grounded, more certain, like a woman who has been through something and come out the other side knowing exactly who she is. That version of you is magnetic in a way that the version who was begging to be understood never could be. And this is often when he comes back. When the man who watched you pour yourself out trying to get him to see you suddenly sees you clearly from a distance, through your absence, in the middle of his ordinary life that somehow feels emptier than it used to, he starts to connect the dots. The peace he took for granted gone, the warmth he ignored gone, the woman who loved him with everything she had gone, and now she is out there somewhere, healing and growing and becoming something even more extraordinary than what he let leave. And that realization lands differently than any conversation you could have ever had with him. But here's the part you need to hold on to tightly, especially on the hard days. Whether he comes back or not cannot be the measure of your success. Because if you walk away only to spend every day hoping he'll return, you haven't truly walked away. You've just relocated the waiting. Real freedom comes when you get to a place where his return or his absence carries equal weight, where you are so anchored in your own becoming that the outcome of his response to your growth doesn't define your peace. That is the ultimate lesson your absence teaches. Not just him, but you. It teaches you that you are capable of surviving the loss of someone you deeply loved. It teaches you that your happiness was never actually dependent on his participation. You just believed it was because you gave him so much of yourself for so long. It teaches you that the love you were so freely giving outward was always available to be redirected inward. And when a woman learns to give herself the kind of love she used to beg someone else to provide, she becomes untouchable. Not because she has walls, but because she finally has a foundation. Some lessons can only be delivered through loss. And the most powerful thing your absence will ever teach is that you were never just an option. You were the whole thing. And some people only understand that when you're already gone.